Earlier I posted a video about the a two Russian siblings were murdered. I think 22-year-old and 17-year-old by a Thai person who was just released from jail a couple months ago, just randomly. Okay, and like these siblings are driving on their motorcycle 4 in the morning to get, I think they were going to 7-Eleven to get food. And then so far, what we know is randomly they met this guy who was just trying to, I think, just a violent person, wanted to kill them, possibly rape the girl, and ended up killing both of them. So this other thing I was kind of curious about talking with you guys is parenting, right? Because there's a lot of comment about why were these two teenagers um, driving out 4 in the morning to get food. And I do want to mention one thing. I think in Thailand, because there's a lot of 7-Eleven that's open 24 hours, it's actually a pretty common thing for people to be out roaming about 4 in the morning just to go to 7-Eleven to grab a quick bite. That being said, parenting is kind of tricky, right? There's the very liberal parenting, um, where like you let your kid hang out all night with their friends and do whatever they want. And then there's the other aspect of parenting, which I see sometimes, is that the parent, and usually the mom, is so overprotective, so overbearing, so over worried about everything that a lot of times those kids also don't grow up quite normal. I mean, they're afraid of everything. They see the worst in everybody and everything. They anticipate the worst, and it's just a lot of fear, right? The mom's complete fearful of everything, and so the kids complete fear of everything. So those are the two extremes, and then there's somewhere in the middle. Now, I think I'm somewhere in the middle. That being said, I don't think I'm a great parent, and my parents were definitely not a great parent either. And if you look at it, a lot of people aren't that great of a parent because they just kind of get married, have a kid, and they just kind of figure it out. And in the meantime, at least in the Western society, there's nobody home a lot of the times. Both parents are working because of the inflation, the cost of living, and you send the kids to school, and so and then their friends and their social pressures, social circle, and their Instagram, their TikTok, all those things they things they consume has more influence in the kids than the parent. So that's one social factor, right? I think it's a social design, make it to the point where the parents don't have the time and energy to raise their kid properly. The parents were never taught how to be a good parent. And so let's go to the main question here that I wanted to get your input on. Do we need to have license to be a parent? Do we need to have courses? You know how they have premarital counseling? Do we have need to have a pre-baby counseling and a course or a license to make sure that we have the knowledge that it takes to start learning how to be a good parent? I know learning to be a parent is always a process, but you shouldn't be old, right? You shouldn't have a kid. It's one of the biggest responsibility there is. And and if we don't, and a lot of times we don't get the right parenting from our parents, and so they don't know what they're doing. We don't know what we're doing, and we're just figuring it out. And being a parenting is very, very important. And there's a thought about how this Thai guy was abused by his father. His father was beating him up at his kid, and maybe he's just angry. And this is how he take it out to the world. That's how what he learned to respond to the world when he's frustrated and angry. So give me your thought, okay? I did a little research here. There's obviously many factors that may cause someone to be violent, right? It's not just the childhood experience, childhood upbringing, and it's also, a little genetic. There's obviously family environment or environment in general. There's childhood experiences, friends and social influences, education, trauma. mental and physical health, substance abuse, life circumstances, and the choices we make through our life, right? So there's no single factor, okay? But to drive a car, we're required of a driver license and taking, learning the test and all that, and pass the test to get a license. To be a doctor, nurse, electrician, pilot, teacher, real estate agent, esthetician, hairstylist, um, many countless amount of things. To be a chef, countless amount of things requires us to go through years of learning, practicing, training, and to be licensed and certified. And because we want people to do things safely, right? And yet, probably the biggest responsibility you could ever do is to bring another life into this world, be a parent, okay? Raising a child. And yet, no formal education, no, counseling, like marital counseling or parental counseling, no preparation. And people are just allowed to have kids and abuse them and teach them all the wrong things and mentally, physically abuse them. And then or even setting the wrong perspective in life. Um, Again, it seems like a silly question, right? Should we have potential parent to pass certain tests or certain education counseling process before they could have a kid, or the minute they have a kid, maybe we should require them to put them through certain, whether it's reading, counseling group with other parents, something more formal and requirement, and not just let people screw up and create monsters, create people who are make many mistakes in their life. Um, anyway, what's your thought? Some people say, "Hey, parent is the right. You have sex and boop, pop, pop, you have parent, and then it's the best thing ever." But being a good parent is just extremely difficult, and I think most of us should be better prepared. So school teaches you a lot of things that people think are useless. I went through a lot of schools, right? 2 doctor degree, but a lot of things I learned in retrospect was completely useless. We never learn about personal finance, avoiding debt, or how to use debt to generate cash flow. We never learn how to build healthy relationships, build businesses, effective communication, conflict resolution. We have never had a course about that. Child development or parenting, mental health awareness. At least when I was going through school, I didn't have any courses on that. Empathy, respect for others, caring, for aging families, how to interact with families, develop healthy friendship relationships, nutrition, healthy living, critical thinking, responsible use of social media. Um, it's strange, right? We go to all these schools and we learn about weird histories and mathematical equation we never use. Um, it's just not very. At least again, I'm 52. So I'm just telling you my education, 30, 40 years ago. There was just a lot of waste of time. And I thought how to choose a spouse, how to know who you are, what you need, and how to be a better spouse, what you need to have before you decide to have a kid. And after the kid, how do you raise successful, happy kids? None of that was taught to me. And I spent so many times learning about things that's completely useless. And anyway, tell me what you think. What do you think about parenting? Again, I feel very awful for these Russian siblings. Um, and I already said for someone who committed these type of murder, the punishment should be far worse. But what do you think family environment and parenting contributed um, to this severe tragedy? Anyway, I'm very grateful that you're listening, and I'm very grateful for the subscribers. I don't know who you are, but I'm extremely appreciative. Thank you so much.